where we're recording now. But after a brief break, we're back. So meeting five, Mammoth Film Group. We're all on the same coast. But I wanted to just kind of, open up. I feel like we've always done this more, casually, just general catch up. I think it's been about 1.5, 2 months since we last talked. So I would love to. I think that's been a time where we probably have seen some exciting movies. But I'd love to maybe hear any kind of theater going experience or if you've attended any film festivals. I think that'll be pretty cool. So, um, yeah, maybe if anybody wants to jump in, I think Jackson, you said you had
Oh
some.
yeah, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
We missed our meeting for AAPI Heritage Month, but I have a whole AAPI cinema kind of
Hmm.
collection for today or something. So first of all, I'm going to send a picture to our messenger chat
Okay.
um, to kind of just have a visual to work with. So the other day I went to Tribeca and I saw Shortcomings,
Hey
Oh,
yo,
actually, and it was a great film. We were there, director was there, Justin H. was there, the whole cast was there along with Randall Park, the director, which was really cool. The film is great.
wow.
It's
Oh, I saw
very,
this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's really interesting. There's a lot of like it's that wonderful kind of like everyone in the movie is a horrible person with a lot of like toxic behaviors or tendencies or this kind of thing, but it's very focused on this specific kind of like Japanese American guys, kind of like Asian American alienation
Uh,
kind of in an American
yeah.
world. He very pointed, like one of the most pointed kind of things he deals with or that he has an issue with or that kind of like gets brought up a lot is this complex kind of dating situation between um white Asian women who date white men and Asian men who are into white women and the kind
Mhm.
of like push and pull of the kind of weird, yeah, like
Yeah.
circle relationship there. It's good. It's very interesting. I have the graphic novel that it's based on here actually that I
It's
read.
it's it's featuring the guy from After Yang, right?
Yes, it's
Oh,
Yang of After Yang and
yeah,
oh
also
yeah,
wow,
he's that chorus leader or whatever in Beef as well.
yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, or something I think
But
his character.
but 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 this film's not out for like general release yet, right? It's
No,
like
I think wide
just.
release will be in August.
Mhm.
But yeah, highly would recommend. We'll be
Oh
telling
yeah.
people to go see this when it comes out.
I was
Um,
looking at the cast, and I mean there's obviously no plot, right? But I'm already interested by
yeah,
cynical movie theater. That's such
there
an
are a lot
interesting.
of movie
Yeah.
references. He's like a
Yeah.
bum. He's like a burnout filmmaker. He like watches movies all the time. He's got
Yeah,
his like Criterion DVDs on the coffee table and like this kind of
I love
whole
that.
thing. Really funny. Um, yeah, so that was great. I also saw Past Lives again this past month. I don't know if you guys have
Dude,
gotten a chance to see that yet.
I I'm definitely getting a lot of my friends in Philly to go watch it.
Yeah.
I got a few. It's I don't know. I think maybe I mentioned this, but it's like that was like the movie that I would have wanted to like make. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do
yeah,
remember you saying that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's remarkable. I think Greta Lee is just great. I fell in love with her when I first saw her in Russian Doll and just like everything
yeah.
that she's in. She has so
Mhm,
much range and like kind of personality and presence. So she's
mhm.
really great. What else did I see? I've been working some film festivals, kind of stuff. Oh, I guess the last interesting update is that I have recently been working on a film festival program for
Okay.
the Asian American International Film Festival,
Wow.
AAIF. That because they are putting on their first. So I originally applied to volunteer to screen as like a film programmer screener, wanted to
Uh-huh.
watch films for them. Um, but when I had my staff interview, that they had pretty much done a lot of their film program already, and they had kind of sorted it like they were pretty far along, but
Hmm.
heard about my background in new media and in games and in this kind of thing, and we're
Hmm.
like, hey, we're trying to put on our first in-person VR gallery, immersive media gallery, and we don't have a
Hmm.
programmer for it. We kind of have these other programmers, but maybe that's something you'd want to take on. And so I have recently um been programming this VR gallery and like
Oh my
planning
gosh.
events and like
Oh,
picking up
wow.
VR film submissions and trying to like I have to write up this program description this week or next week. It's been really fun actually. It's been really
Yeah.
stressful for sure, and I don't have this kind of experience a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning a lot as I go, and I'm calling lots of friends who have more installation experience with this kind of thing because to like organize a gallery versus like even like a screening is a whole different thing. You have to do all the like tech setup and like manage people coming in and out and like all this thing
Yeah.
versus you just like screening room play the file. So it's been this really interesting, cool professional challenge that I've taken on recently. It's gonna go up
Yeah.
for days at the end of July. I don't know if you guys are like around or if you guys would want to stop, if you guys are going to be in the city, it'd be really, I'll be inviting lots of people when it goes up.
It's you
But
said
yeah,
it's in July, right? I
end of
am
July. Yeah, I believe like
and
the 28th and 29th, that
okay,
weekend, last
okay.
weekend.
I'm actually going to be in Korea that time, and I'll kind of. I mean, I was in Korea in May, and I'm going back. I'll tell you the context and
Yeah.
everything, but that wait. So if you say you're like programming like a kind of the VR component of the film festival, does like I guess like, what does that really mean? Does that mean you're like soliciting movies that have VR quality and then showing them, or like
Yeah, so the festival gets a lot of submissions and they have a category of submission for like immersive, interactive, digital, VR, new media kind of stuff. And
okay,
so I reviewed all the submissions we got mostly. And then we also have a kind of like there's an alumni of the festival, someone who used to work with Asian Cinevision who um used to program for Asian Cinevision who runs the festival, and she
hmm
had a kind of immersive but kind of mixed media piece premiere at South by Southwest this past year. It was called Temporal World. The artist is Chloe Lee, so we're going to be showing that. That'll be kind of our like
cool.
headliner piece. It's really really cool. And yeah, so we decided on those, or that was decided before I came on, and then I
hmm
picked one other VR film and two kind of non-screen, more like installation kind of
mm
exhibition type films that will play like on a loop on a stand in the same space. And so it'll be really
What
small, just a couple of works.
what venue like where are you guys? Where's the festival happening? Is it
We are
like
still trying to lock it down, but it might be at one of these like we're trying to find like yeah, like an event space, particularly one that's like Asian American focused or kind of like Asian kind of design or Asian run.
dude,
We're thinking
that's
about this
super
place
cool.
called Hana House in Brooklyn. It's been really, yeah, it's been
Oh yeah.
exciting.
Um, and I feel like that would kind of like have some relevance with like your thesis too, right? I mean, it seems like
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Meta stability
Really,
and
yeah, it's been really cool. One of these other pieces is very animated, and it's like a
okay.
whole, VR animation film, and you can look all around. But it's this metastable, cool, like kind of modern metastable art where the characters are 3D models and they move through a
Mm.
3D space. But then there's a lot of this really creative, really beautiful, like 2D flat kind of detailing or painting on textures or this kind of thing. I'm really excited to share. And the work that the other VR film that isn't the South by one that we are probably screening is this one that showed at Tribeca. And I
Okay,
got to see it at Tribeca's immersive thing maybe a week ago. And yeah, it was really, really cool. So I'm excited for it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you kind of have like a nice you've spent your past month like with a good balance of different kinds of film
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah. This has been an interesting new kind of thing to throw at it, but I've been really pleased by it.
yeah,
Mm.
that's awesome. Um, oh, I guess I can go next real quick. So,
You got a lot.
trying to pick and choose which ones are the big updates. Well, I guess the big update is I'm now living in Philadelphia. Have packed up, moved away from San Francisco, and for the month of like May, I was actually in Korea visiting family. Um, but this is kind of like a non-update, but like what I wish I participated in. In May was actually there was a film festival in Seoul called Friends of the Cinematheque. Um, that's like a pretty big like kind of an arts film festival that's held in Seoul Art Cinema. and I've been wanting to check it out, and I've like a lot of critics and film directors that I like usually do a lot of interviews for that film festival. And I was planning on watching. They were playing Wheels of Misfortune and like Wheels of Misfortune and Fantasy.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I was gonna go rewatch it, but I think the tickets are sold out, so I couldn't go. So that was kind of a bummer. Um,
Uh,
yeah.
mm,
but yeah, I mean, now that I'm in Philly, I am trying to like get plugged into some of the film scene here. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. I don't think there are too many like there's so I think in Philly there's one big film center that
Mm.
does a lot of the showings on there. I think they have like right now, like I actually looked it up. Right now they're doing the showing where they're going through the entire site in South 100 and then showing all
Wow.
of them, right?
mm,
But it kind of does feel like there's like a monopoly over like the theater sort of presence here because it's like that Philadelphia Film Center, and then like a AMC movie theater, and that's like it, you know. So um,
one for the
I
overground, one for the under.
The two
yeah, I'm
genders.
exactly, but other than that, I think so. Some films that I watched that I actually really enjoyed. Um, there's one movie that I watched, which was a suggestion by somebody who I was in like this new incoming class Zoom call for NYU program that I ended up not going to, but somebody on that program said they watched this movie called Therapy Dog. Um,
Oh,
and I don't know if you guys heard of it. It was so my cup of tea. It's like these kids from Canada who
Mm,
pretend
oh,
that
the
they're
Blackberry guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. It's just it feels like I feel like I haven't watched like a really good coming of age film in a while. But
Mm,
I mean, this sort of blends fiction and documentary, but also this kind of has that like essence of teenage angst that I really like in a
mm,
film. So this movie I really enjoyed, and I also recently watched. Have you guys seen Drunk? Or it's called
drunk.
another round. Not Drunk is
Yes.
the
Brook.
I watched. Yeah, Drook. Yeah, yeah. This was this was a fantastic film too. That I
mm,
really yeah. I mean, I think this movie just I feel like a lot of the times I think you kind of forget just like the sheer like entertainment or just like a pleasant just like a whole like all around feel good movie experience, and I think that's what another round felt like to me. Um, so I really like that. And then right now, I don't know why I have started to undertake this. I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it, but I just started watching Happy Hour by Amaguchi.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah,
mm,
and that is like 5.5 hours long. Right now, there's like I'm like 50 minutes in, and 30 minutes of that 50 minutes was just the characters at this workshop doing all the workshop exercises, but that took 30 minutes. It's
So
mm,
just
it was the
them.
whole workshop, like.
Yeah. So
mm,
they just entirely like probably didn't edit the workshop scene and they just
Wow.
pasted it in. But I think when I'm watching Happy Hour, it like kind of has that quality of like Days from when we watched it earlier by Channing
yeah.
Wang.
Signing down. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Channing Wang, and how you just have those scenes where you kind of get transfixed by how long the takes are. And at a certain point, when I'm watching the workshop scene, and you just see them like inhaling and exhaling for like 10 minutes straight, just kind of like it
You
kind of
start
puts you in
doing
like
it
this
too.
trance. Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, I've been watching Happy Hour recently.
Mm, mm,
Um, but that's kind of my update. Nothing too. I think one thing that I want to do while I'm at school though is like invite friends to. I think now I feel like more that like my role or like something where I could feel like I can have a bigger impact is like introducing friends to good movies,
yeah.
hosting screenings at my school, And yeah, I'm hoping to do more of that. Like once school actually starts picking up. Yeah.
Love that. Dude, I think of that. I sing that song from the end of Another Round, where they're all partying. I sing that
Yeah.
song to myself like all the time. It just randomly. I'm like,
Ah.
oh, what a life.
Yeah. And then when he like jumps into the ocean
Yeah.
at the end, that's such that ending was so cathartic. Have you seen it,
Right?
Youngblood?
Yeah.
So I've
Bro,
not
have you
seen the
seen it?
movie. No.
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 It is so like perfectly layered,
Would
and
recommend, yeah.
Hmm.
yeah,
Chill
yeah.
evening, have a beer, put it on, you know.
I
I feel,
will once
I feel
once
like
my laptop is back. I'll be sure to check it
yeah.
out.
And I think Another Round would actually be a really great film to like watch with business school people because
Yeah.
everybody here is like massive drinkers, and I mean,
Mhm.
but this movie is it's not like saying anything negative about drinking, you know, but
Mm.
it's just more about kind of the cycle of like the physiological form alcohol takes in your body and kind of the consequences of that. So, it'll be pretty interesting.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very mature that way, right? It's not such a like kind of clear cut indictment or anything like this.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. What about you, Young Gong? Any sort of updates? Kind of how you've been?
So I passed my generals. Um,
Oh,
Hey,
Now I have to get started on my prospectus. Get people on my dissertation committee and everything.
that's
Um,
huge.
what does that mean if you pass your general? Does that mean like you are like you can now write your dissertation?
I mean, it basically means you can continue on with the program.
I see, I see.
Yeah, it doesn't like confer you like an MA in passing or anything.
I see,
Um,
I see.
it's and I've been assigned to as a TA to the silent film course next semester.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, I don't know what that entails. What kind of secretarial jobs I'll be doing. Making copies.
Grading
Transporting
papers,
films.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's this for sure. Given. Um, Other than that, I've just sort of been cooling down. I'm just relaxing. I've said goodbye to all of my cohort members. We went bowling, and then I've mostly just been relying on free screenings at the HFA, the Harvard Film
Uh,
Archive, and
Mhm.
they've been on fire these
really?
past 2 months. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
maybe I
had the
should make
late.
a trip out. I should go visit my brother and we'll hit the. It's
You
like,
got to come through, man.
Wow.
They're screening the entirety of O's surviving filmography
oh my
over the
God.
summer.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So
Wow. The complete.
yeah, and it's crazy as last week they for three of his silent films, there's like a resident like silent film accompanist who does live piano performances alongside the silent films. Yeah,
No.
but on
Like
top
pit
of that, they
orchestra.
brought a benshi performer from Japan.
No.
And so benshi is like in the old silent era of Japanese film, there was like a
That's
live
funny.
narrator who would like read out the
Uh-huh.
dialogue, add little ad libs here and there, do a little narration, and he would voice every single character, men, children, women, and this guy is apparently like the sort of like the
Wow.
grandson of the teacher lineage of the guy who saved
Crazy.
the benshi tradition in like the 50s. So like he's legit. So he came over, and then we had this guy, that guy to the right, the live accompanist to the left, packed theater, standing
That is.
ovation time. The
Right.
the films were over, and then he's an amazing actor. Like he
Yeah.
really his I mean inevitably all the women sound the same because he's a guy, but like but he knows how to like really freight his voice with emotion. And there was like a really like a scene between a jilted lover and a sort of a wayward husband character in Story of a Floating Weeds, and he really sold it in a way that yeah I was like levitating during the last week's
Yeah.
screening, and
So cool.
yeah
And
been,
it seems like that is like the closest approximation that a film experience can have to like what it was like to watch a film like at the time when Ozu was making it, like in the 40s and the 50s and like 60s.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
super cool.
As it was
Yeah.
intended, and if you think
Yeah.
about like the traditional doctrine of Japanese cinema, it was like it was like another actor. It totally is, right? It's like another
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
performer. It's like film was just fundamentally kind of live and theatrical that
Mhm.
way.
Right.
Oh, I'm so jealous, dude. That's amazing. So did he? I have questions now. Did he perform in Japanese then?
Yes, yes.
And
So
you,
I couldn't understand any of the narration bits he would add that were not part of the inner titles.
I see.
Yeah. So some of the dialogue he spoke is clearly part of the inner titles, like you can
Mhm.
tell. But there are a few
Yeah,
ad
but
libs
I'm
here
sure
and
he's
there.
taking a lot of liberties, right? And
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
his own kind of like personal embellishment on it, and like
Mhm.
So that's
that's
like
real.
this is like on top of like the film. Like so is this somebody kind of ad-libbing over Ozu's film?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting? I did not know that. Wow.
Broadcaster or like a sports commentator for the film, right? Like he.
Yeah,
Oh, live
basically.
narration. Oh,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't do that for like a silent. Like they would only do that for a silent film, like Benchy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure with this when silent films started going like out of date, I feel like
Yeah,
Benchies would
the
also be
best
going
kind
out
of
of date,
fades
right?
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently
For
the whole
sure.
tradition was almost killed off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I bet it's like samurais too, right? Like once
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it originates in like kabuki, right? Like traditional
Mhm.
like dance theater and this kind of thing. So I think kabuki, as it's still performed traditionally, has the benshi, but the cinematic benshi was this kind of lightning in a bottle, like flash in a bottle
Yeah.
career. So interesting.
Apparently in its heyday, like people with like Benchies were kind of movie stars of their own because they would
Yeah. Oh
go
yeah.
for their sort of favorite Benchy narrator rather than the
right,
film.
right.
Mm-hmm. Because they definitely, yeah, because they do a lot that was very subjective and kind of personal, and
Yeah.
that's
It's
about,
kind
yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like how like even I mean I'm not a big fan of audiobooks, but I think you kind of pick and choose audiobooks based on the kind of voice you like
The
or
readers, yeah.
yeah, that's what makes sense. Well,
So
that's
cool.
cool. Yeah,
So
I think
okay, I'm doing it
um,
then. I'm coming out like next month or something.
yeah. And I think at a certain point, like, and maybe you can discuss this further down the road, like, it'll be nice to do like a yeah, like watch a movie together at one point. Either
Yeah, right.
Hell
I think
yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
think I think New York would probably be the best middle ground. Like, I
Just
feel
come up
like
Yeah.
for
yeah,
festival or something
yeah,
in
yeah,
October.
yeah. Oh yeah, I think like sometime in the fall would be. I feel like fall would be the best time for this to happen.
Mm.
Like, or like yeah, just to go up and then go watch a
Mhm.
film together.
Or
That'll
like
actually be really fun.
premieres,
Yeah.
possible award season. It'd be a good moment.
Yeah, I'll be excited.
Hmm.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, let's jump right
Yeah.
into the first film that we can discuss, which is Welcome Back, Mr. McDonald. I think this is, in a way, like kind of, I think as we're talking about Banshees and sort of this maybe alternative mode
Mm.
to like entertainment that's not like this standard visual, audio-visual medium that we're used to, like film. I feel like yeah, I mean, I can open it up real quick. Like I think I tend to, I feel like my track record says I tend to enjoy films like this, which is about kind of this like horror spirit of people coming together to make some sort of media form. And I think in the beginning I was like I maybe it was just getting used to like the cinematic style of this movie, and then steeping myself into kind of this world. But yeah, no, I think I overall really enjoyed it, and I think I like movies that tend to be like it's tippy toeing on the line of cynicism and like hope, and I feel like this movie it really does that. Where I think the executive director um, kind of is drenched in that cynicism as we like get to know him. But towards the end of the film, there's kind of this like redeeming sort of this like mutual grounds moment with the guy who thwarted him and then the executive director. So um, yeah, I think like that's kind of a initial thought that I had. Um, and I also because it's super random, but I think the Mr. McDonald guy didn't he look a lot like young Bill Murray?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Uh,
That's really
uh,
funny. And the face where he like, looks fed up. Yeah, right.
uh, um,
Uh, that's
yeah. What
great.
about what are some
Yeah.
thoughts that you
Can
guys
I
had?
ask how you first became aware of this movie? Because I've never heard of anything about this movie before. You
I
suggested it.
so you know how I told you like I use this like Korean version of
Right.
Letterboxd, and then just when I'm on the when I'm on that I guess app, it was just based on what I like. It would suggest me some films that the algorithm thinks I would like, and then this was one of them. Um,
I see.
and then yeah, so that's kind of how I found out about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like felt I think the movie also reminded me a lot of like different styles and directors that I think like we've all watched and are used to. But I guess just right now off the top of my head, I can't like quite think of them. But yeah, I'm just open to hearing like what you guys
I
were
was
thinking.
trying to identify what it felt like because it felt so familiar. There was
It
something that
did,
felt so kind of like tradition, even like just traditionally comedic about it. It felt kind of like
yeah.
sketchy or like kind of skitty.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the physicality of some of these actors to make it so comical really adds to
Yeah.
that, right? Like, what's his name who plays Ushijima, the producer? He just makes
Mm.
the most hilarious faces and is like so animated and like,
Yeah.
like brings his shoulders up like this and be like freaking out at something. Like that's a lost or just like an underrated element of like making it so
True.
silly right? Or making
Yeah.
like the characters still like and it's him being angry right and being ridiculous and being angry and it's still funny even though it has that again like it plays with
Mhm.
that cynicism or the like kind of shit showness of it along with trying to be lighthearted but I think it toes it really well. I think it plays with a very I mean as someone as like a maker or thinker of making about making things like that tension between it needs to get done and it needs to be good
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so ongoing, right? And you always will at some point in anything you do need to just get it done and you will
Hmm.
always want it to be the best thing that it can represent to you and
Yeah.
um it's kind of this impossible tension and it's met often with like yeah that kind of total cynicism that a lot of the executives have or like we just have to appease Noko-san and we just have to put the show out and we have to appease the sponsor and like the writer the integrity of the writer of the script or whatever is like not our
Yeah.
concern um but at the end and kind of with everyone coming back to save it and have it be this kind of really special ultimately really special thing that they all kind of created together and having that be
Hmm.
the inherent beauty of it it hits the nail on the head. I think that's what's so charming about what is so stressful about making
Yeah.
I mean it feels like it's about film. I know it's not it's like it's about radio drama but it's about
Right.
like
Right.
like theatrical production narrative production like
Hmm.
that will be that's an eternal tension I feel like especially in such a collaborative like
For
broadcast
sure.
yeah
Yeah. And I feel like it's not like it's essentially a movie about like managing relationships and
Mm-hmm.
managing different expectations one might have and kind of like yeah like working as a team. And I think the reason why I always like movies like this is because it's like you're seeing the blind spot of because when we watch a film or like when we listen to music you don't see like the behind the scenes of like what went into it. But I think movies that make movies about what it's like to make a movie, it's like the one kind of avenue in which we are able to take a glimpse into the backstage. Um, it's like we were all sort of like the truck drivers at the end of the day, right? We were all the truck driver. Like as consumers, we're always going to be the truck driver. Um, I remember when I was watching it, I kind of like was confused why like what role the truck driver played in this film. But then as it progressed, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like he plays a crucial part.
Mhm.
Um,
Like that's the ultimate, yeah, this is the ultimate value of why we do what we do, right? Or why they do what they do, is even if it's maybe a piece of crap or like we pick it apart, like the work that has the potential to inspire people regardless. And that's
yeah,
worth
yeah. And how sometimes like what could be inspiring, like actually the backstage was something that was so like put together last minute.
it.
Like
Yeah.
you know how like the spaceship blasting off sound was like just a vacuum or something. Um, yeah, and I think it's kind of like I think like those little moments really made the film very like yeah, like little nuggets of creativity. Um,
Gosh, like I'm never going to forget the firework. The guy was like,
yeah, yeah,
like so I was losing it. I actually like my roommate went to bed like 10 or 20
uh,
minutes before it happened, and then I just
uh,
screamed when it happened. I was just sorry. It
and
was
that's something
so
that the direct. Oh, I guess it was like based off of a play already, but like the person who wrote the play must have had to, or I don't know if like the person who wrote the play had to think of it, or like the director had to think of it, but somebody had to think of like that actual like like
Mhm.
sound, right? Which is very funny. Young Lung, do you have any thoughts or any that you were kind of yeah thinking about watching it? Oh, I think you're silent. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know if we can hear you.
Oh, you're on mute right now.
Oh shoot, was he trying to talk?
Dude, you made a rookie mistake. Rookie mistake, young bro.
Am I muted now?
Yeah.
No, you I can hear you.
Okay, good. I think, yeah, I was mostly surprised because like this is basically a screwball comedy, but and
Mm,
and I always thought that comedy that sort of relies on like language, and not that this is like you know at scarce on physical comedy by any means, but that sort of very reliant on manners, language is often hard to translate. But I don't know. I thought it translated pretty fine, and and that was my first source of surprise. And I'm hearing both of you talk. I think yeah, I think both of your points are like a bit related, especially in my experience. Like Andrew, you talked about sort of liking films that sort of had this like humanity hurrah spirit
mm,
to them, that still nevertheless teeters on some sort of like grounded
yeah,
cynicism, as to sort of, I guess, make that hurrah a little bit more powerful, a little bit more lasting.
yeah,
And then, and Jackson, in your discussion, you talked about how, yeah, like a lot, in addition to all the like all the silliness, and there's just a lot of like groundedness to the film, and like when we talk about like movies that are about movies or movies that are about the creative endeavor sometimes is about like sort of like a visionary mind or a couple of visionary minds that are sort of, you know, long suffering in reality, but they summon this sort of spiritual, beautiful energy from the ether and they bring it to
mm,
the world. And it's a very noble and very, it's a very painful process, but they do it regardless. But here it's sort of, I think part of the cynicism, rather than any sort of like, having any sort of nihilistic edge to it, is just sort of showing how like funny the process of that summoning
yeah,
really is.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really just involves a lot of fireworks, lots of ass kissing, lots of
yeah,
ego pleasing, lots of losing the forest for the trees, maybe even till the very end. And
yeah,
then, but in the end, what it amounts to, you can sort of look back and say, that was worthwhile.
Right.
There's a very like sort of humiliated sense of wonder, I think, by the end that
mm,
emerges. And and yeah, and I think that, and in that sense, I think the comedy really dovetails well with that sense of humanism. I think that Andrew's talking about,
yeah,
and yeah, I don't know. Japan is very good at this very particular threading of the needle. I think this sort of
And
yeah.
I think,
I don't know why that is, but
and you said something that I guess actually made me realize what I was like the movies I was thinking of. One thing about this film that I feel like it's I think we kind of overlook because of its like comedic and sort of the screwball element is in some ways how like bureaucratic or like procedural the film feels too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's very like procedural. It's very kind of like this systematized kind of playing politics. Almost
yeah.
reminded me of why am I blanking on the name? It's the first Kurosawa film we watched together.
High and low.
The
I don't know.
High Low, right? Yeah, yeah, High and Low. It like you know how I think there's kind of that like both films. It's about like working together as a team and then kind of this like bureaucracy that arises from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I feel like even in this film, I think they use this procedural element as like a comedic device, right? Um, I thought that was really like something that I thought of. And second, I think I remembered what film I was thinking. At the end of the day, this movie is also a movie that just takes place in a studio.
Yeah.
Like there's no changing of the setting. It's like kind of like a court, like like one of those like courtroom drama films. Like I was thinking 12 Angry Men a little bit, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
how it's a very like it's a movie about a group of people that has this one idea in the beginning and then completely turns into something different by the end of it. And I think in both cases it like kind of has that undertone. And I think there is also this kind of like I don't know, like movies that feel like a play, which I
Yeah.
think like I mean I feel like 12 Angry Men's one of them. I think
Yeah,
this
yeah.
movie's one of them.
You say this
I
was
think
based on a play?
it's based off of play. I think that's
I
why it
didn't
makes sense.
realize that, but one of my immediate thoughts after watching it is that would be such an interesting play.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is. Oh, and another movie that it's like I'm thinking of like Tape by Linklater, also similar kind of like
Yes,
play-like
yeah.
quality. Um, I'm pretty sure it was like based off of a can't look it up here, but like yeah, I think that's kind of some
Mm.
unbaked, half-baked thoughts that I had
I
about
get
it.
what
Like
you mean. I really like your point about the comedic bureaucracy. Like, how many times is there the producer on the phone with the exec, and the exec gets off the phone and talks to the actor, who talks back to the exec, who gets back on the phone and talks to the producer, who talks to the writer, and like it's just having this like four-person conversation between the two,
yeah,
and like and then all the just and then to Young Gong's point actually about like the universality of the comedy, despite maybe a language barrier, this kind of thing, like the expressiveness, the facial expressiveness, the physicality of it, I think really adds to that. I was gonna say I watched this movie just on YouTube, like on a fan sub, like
yeah, I
the
mean,
movie ended and the credits rolled, and the guy who did the captions and uploaded the video was like, "Thank you for watching. Hope you laughed a lot. I love this movie a lot." And it was just some guy, right, who just like wanted to share the movie. And so there were little grammatical errors or little translation bugs, but I think it comes through very, very clear. And like
yeah,
even just the like cadence and the rhythm of how these characters speak to each other. Even if the subtitles are delayed or not, the tone comes through so clearly, or they're kind of like, the what? Oh, what? Oh, what do you mean you're gonna do this? Well, then you're gonna do this.
Yeah, yeah.
The pace of it is so yeah, it has this kind of universal, pleasurable kind of rhythm or tactility to it, even.
yeah. And as last comment is like even just
Yeah.
like the names that they use, like Donald McDonald or like
Yeah.
Mary Jane,
Ahí
it's something
está
so
pizza.
yeah, something so simple, but like it it I feel like it works, right? um, but so yeah, I think that's yeah, I feel like it was a good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. And,
I did really enjoy this.
Yeah.
cool.
This was perfect execution on a premise of terribly imperfect execution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect execution on the premise of a terrible. All right, let's move on. I think we can talk. I feel like there's would be a lot to unpack here too. But Tukibuki, yeah, by include this last name.
Mhm.
This was
Oh,
actually my first African film.
wow.
So, and I think it was a good and I feel like I somehow ended up watching the Scorsese commentary on To Keep Your Feet,
Yeah, I had
and
to
he
watch a
gave
bunch
it,
of things.
yeah, and then it kind of got me like sort of like I didn't watch the other films, but like there's a whole treasure trove and like genealogy of African film directors like Nat Hondo, Usman Sembène, and
Mm.
I guess I think before we even talk about the film, it made me sort of kind of check my biases of like how like focused I am on Asian cinema and Western cinema. The most like West, like the most I guess like close to Africa I would go is like Iran or like
Yeah,
Kiarostami. So yeah, I feel like this was a good at least like beginning for me to start exploring more like cinema from Africa.
yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. I think I've definitely underwatched. I mean, Africa is such a huge category of film as well, but definitely is like something that you don't readily kind of identify or even have a lot of access to if you're not looking very carefully for it. So it felt
Yeah.
like an valuable thing to suggest or a valuable intervention. And I knew very
Yeah.
little going into this, but did also watch that Scorsese intro. There was another interview from his brother. His brother has like a conversation with his niece, and there's a whole like 20-minute long interview on Criterion Channel, but you might be able to find it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Really wonderful and just like really insightful because I think just watching this movie and not looking anything up or not like kind of giving myself some context, I was pretty
Yeah.
lost or I was like
Yeah.
pretty mystified.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to watch it twice. I watched it once and was kind of couldn't get into it or like would find myself on my phone or like was doing other things and I couldn't like quite sink really into it and got to the end even and then was like I didn't pick up anything from that. I didn't watch again. So I came back to it like a week and a half later and I saw it again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it kind of coalesced a little more, but it felt like one of those things that really like has so much to offer. Like it's like feels like a
Yeah.
movie that
Yeah.
will change my life, but I am not yet in a position intellectually or emotionally or whatever to let myself be changed permanently by this movie yet.
Yeah.
Um, is kind of how it felt. Like I'm not ready. I feel that way about a couple other movies too. I think Kieślowski's Blue is one of those where I don't feel like I'm ready to be really deeply affected, even if I can see and appreciate how beautiful or how much it's doing.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the one I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where to reflect. I don't know how much you guys know contextually about this. This
Yeah.
movie was made for $3,000 outside of any kind of French or Western or international funding. He mostly got it from the Senegalese government.
Mm-hmm.
Because back at the time, France had like a code of conduct or like a cinematic like content code of conduct, and so he wanted the kind of creative freedom, so he got it sponsored by the outside of French creative control, and I think that's why you get a lot of this very graphic imagery for one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And it's definitely not something that I feel like was like regulated by like French government. If like you could tell
No.
that he got funding from outside sources because
Mhm.
um I mean like I think we were able to consume like watch this film and then be um like I think we were able to see a lot of influences from like French New Wave. I think even like the montage scene where he's like slaughtering the cow and then the motorcycle
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of like the film by Eisenstein. Like I think it's called like
Yeah.
Strike. I think it's yes, Strike by
Yeah.
Eisenstein.
Yeah.
Um, but I could tell that this film wouldn't have been possible for release if it got funding from like the French government. Like it's very
Mhm.
progressive, very um, and I think this kind of is like my one comment. I think I was also um, I think I felt similar to how you felt Jackson as well, where like the film felt like mystified me. I feel like I wasn't at like an intellectual or emotional level to grasp the kind of I don't know some sort of like spirit or like the essence of like what Mimiti wanted to distill. But it's also the kind of film that like it just feels mysterious. It just feels like it's out in the ether. And there's this kind of like dreamlike quality of it that I think only like a film could really exude. I think I felt this similarly when I watched Persona by Bergman, right? I think I had a similar kind of like mystification that I felt watching Tokyo Bookie too. So yeah, I mean, I think those are some initial thoughts that I had about
Very
it.
unbounded, right? Like they spend very
Very,
little time anywhere consistent, or it's always on to the next thing, next thing, next thing. There's a lot of
yeah,
like, yeah, flux, transitions, which is very,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I don't have the language to talk about how it might be like a, post-colonial intervention or this kind of whole
right,
but just as someone who's obsessed with like, as a Hong Konger, even like theme of like
mhm,
nomadism and transience and this kind of thing, it
uh,
like really conveys that. Like it's
mhm,
so just like floating above.
yeah. And we can even read like some scenes remind me of Fallen Angel. Like I think there is kind of a
Oh,
yeah, and I'd love to hear Yonggong after this too. But I think
yeah,
I also like was just focusing on the fact that at the end of the day, this is a film about two very ambitious and unstable lovers who are trying to elope, right? Um, and then all the kind of anxieties and hardships and um, uh, just shit that they go through. Um, and I think at the core of it, like those are films I like, where it's talking about. I mean, it's like it's also like in a way like coming of age film too, right? It's in a way.
totally.
Um, and then I think that last scene where the I don't know, I forgot the name, but where like I think Mori is the one who stays, and then the girl like she leaves. And there's like that kind of like bittersweetness to how the film ends too. Um, but Youngbang, do you have any input on this?
Yeah, I mean, I basically echo everything you guys said. I think just in terms of the wealth they contain, even in the like the most recent sighting South Pole, like sort of the stature of like African, South American, and really the cinema from the Indian subcontinent have not
Yeah,
risen appreciably at all in those ranks. And even like it's so and like Hondo, Semben, so many of sort of the African canon, as it were, and I had to look this up. Like so many of them were barely saved from like extinction because of the World Cinema Foundation, and
yeah, yeah,
and I think that is more alarming than it is sort of relieving because it is like so much of even so much of what little we know and what little we appreciate is sort of on life support, based on like a single American director's
Right.
generosity or because of his
yeah,
stature, because of a single cinephile's interest after he sort of got a platform that very few get to even enjoy. Um, so there's a yeah, I mean I mean so that's sort of like a sense of alarm that is I guess too big to fit into like a brief discussion. But for the film itself, I think I was very strong. You guys. I think I totally agree with sort of how like jagged the film is, how sort of uninterested and sort of fully understanding, sort of fully accepting like a lost audience member it is. But at the same time, that sense of unboundedness, I think there's like a very tragic contrast between that formal unboundedness and that sort of formal freedom with the narrative, where, as you said,
yeah,
two people who want to
Right.
escape to Paris, um, sort of being limited by their own sort of imaginable horizon for their life,
Mm.
which is to get to Europe to escape Senegal, right? So there's already
yeah,
a kind of internalized sense of unfreedom there. And then, they scam a bunch of rich people and, they enjoy the fruit of their past. But like even that has to go away. And the motorcycle that once like
yeah,
sort of sort of symbolizes their, freedom and the wild expanse of Senegal's land is just another possession. It probably killed one. I think it killed one of the thieves who tried to take it away from them. So there's a sense of death attached to sort of their drive,
Hmm.
and
Or to his attachment to
you know,
the locality, right? Like,
yeah. And I think that tragically, like there is like a very like the sort of that sort of freedom or that longing for freedom, where they kind of uh amount to a sense of waywardness more than anything else by the end. It, you're not, you feel like you're not destined to be anything, to be anywhere, and you kind of just have to wander the land. And I think that sort of even when like the narrative beats of the film are not as clear, like I think that sort of sense really shines through. And that play with the form, I think it speaks to how much it's sort of just being left in the shadows.
um,
Yeah. Um, I need to slowly start packing up here, so I think that might be a good place to end our discussion for this movie. But I feel like, I mean, I think one last thing about this
recognizing that we
movie.
could have 5 more meetings just on this movie.
Yeah, I that's because I think we like we just touched on like I feel like at least for me and Jackson, we kind of just touched on the context of like what we were like before we watched the film, but we haven't really like talked about the film yet. So yeah, I think there definitely would be like a part two and three and four of like yeah, I don't know. Like I think something that I thought about was like how this movie blends like styles from French New Wave and
Yeah,
maybe styles from like the Soviet filmmaking, but also has this kind of like Africanness to it that like maybe I don't have like the right word to describe what that is. But at the end of the day, I think it's great that the film kind of has that like Africanness that is like unique to the film, and it's not just a product of these different styles that have
Yeah.
already been in place, right?
Very
yeah,
deeply original, inventive kind
Yeah,
of style. Is very
right.
intentionally moving away
Yeah,
from established schools, and yeah.
yeah. It almost felt like the movie was like a like I feel like I don't know if this analogy would stick, but it's like traditional films that we are used to watching feels like written history. I think Tukibuki felt more like oral history. Like it just kind of, and
Mm,
it's sort of like maybe like unboundedness of the film.
really
Um,
interesting.
that yeah, but okay.
I believe that the
I
title is sorry, yeah, go ahead.
no, go on.
I was gonna say I believe the title is translates directly into some kind of uh makes reference to like an a yeah, the journey of the hyena, like this kind of old
the
oral
journey.
tale. And when there's this interview again
Ah,
that he does and talks about the hyena, which is also the name of his last movie that he made almost 40 years later, um where the hyena is such a central figure in so much African mythology and folklore and oral storytelling, and it's this kind of the hyena as a character is so essential to like that kind of storytelling consciousness, and so it plays very deeply into thinking his character design and his scripts and like kind of that idea of this tenacious, hungry kind of like but also like survivalist, like kind of foraging kind of creature. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think that's totally
Mhm.
a lot a
Mhm.
lot more
Anyway,
exploration, yeah, with the name. Okay, let's do this. Let's decide on our spotlight films before we leave. And in terms of scheduling the time, so I'm gonna be in Korea from so pretty much from this Friday until like end of July, into August a little bit. So we can like still meet on like while I'm in Korea, but I think it might be I don't think we can like find a time in the next 5 minutes. So let's just do it over like messaging, like when our next meeting will be. I'll probably just look at my schedule and tell you guys when I'm more available. But before we go, spotlight film ideas. What are some thoughts we have?
mm,
I mean, just to continue the line of thought in African cinema and sort of also the line of thought of movies that take place in one place and movies that could be a play in addition to it being a musical. I think Hong Kong could put it as one of his Sight and Sound 10 on its ballot as well.
I'm
So
excited. What is it?
Med Hondo's West Indies.
What is it called? Medhando's
West Indies.
West Indie. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. No, I'll definitely be.
Um,
Do you think it'll be? Do you think we can probably find it online or?
Uh, I don't know. It might be available. Yeah, I think so. Wait. Yeah.
might be, yeah,
We'll try to find it.
might be tough, but we'll
Yeah.
dig around. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Any? What about? Do you have any, Jackson?
Um, oh, uh, I was kind of interested in watching this movie Naked, Mike Lee's Naked.
Hmm.
I would be interested too. I've heard of it a lot, and
Yeah.
Let's go
um,
for it.
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Naked, microwave. Um, and how about this? This is like the substitute. Okay.
Mhm.
For me, and maybe we can all watch it. Like if we want to. If we can't find West Indies online,
Hmm.
um, there's a movie that I was interested in called Time of the Gypsies. I don't know if you
Ooh,
guys have heard of it.
Time
Um,
of the.
Time of the Gypsies that
Okay.
I was potentially interested in too. But um,
Oh, okay.
let's
yeah.
leave this as kind of a backup though, if
Yeah.
we can't find West Indies. Okay?
Hmm.
All right. Okay, I think I'm getting
Okay.
kicked out now,
Yeah.
so I will need
Okay.
to
Yeah. Get out of there.
probably get out.